Hello friends, welcome back. Once again, I'm your instructor Ashok Rajguru, and in this video lesson, we shall do a case analysis and synthesis from the bare facts that we have collected in this case. We are not going to use any fancy methodology. We will just stick with what we have been taught by the masters, in particular by Bonninghausen. So we'll be using the X diagram which he recommends, taking into consideration location, modalities, sensations, and concomitants, and arrive at the same remedy which the author of this case made 3 attempts before arriving at the correct one. So you will just see how easy it is and how you can get to handle a case like this with full confidence just by sticking with basic principles. So the objectives of this presentation are to review the patient's symptoms, analyze with the help of the Bonninghausen's X diagram, and to construct rubrics for that analysis. After the analysis, use the materia medica to differentiate between the remedies that come up as top contenders and determine their suitability based on modalities and importantly on organ and tissue affinities. This particular methodology will also help us to be prepared with a second prescription, because if the first prescription works well, we are really very happy with that. But in case it doesn't, do we have to retake the case or start all over again? Or do we have something handy which will point to the next remedy, which is very important in case management? I will not read through these a second time. All of you have gone through the write-up and we have discussed the patient's symptoms in the earlier video. So now we make the Bonninghausen's X diagram, which can look something like this. So first of all, we'll try to find those symptoms which relate to location or which describe the principal complaint of the patient, which are intermittent fever, pain in the bones and ribs in particular during inhalation or a deep breath, and a back pain. We have some modalities also. No causation has been described. We have a headache which is better with darkness, back pain which is better with support and worse with movement, and a chest pain which is worse inhaling deeply. As far as the sensation is concerned, the patient has been describing the pain as that of a bruised, beaten pain, and also the patient is getting chills. If we were to count the concomitants or the comorbidities, well, we can say that headache is one of them because it is not directly related to pain in limbs or muscles. And also there is a swelling on the dorsum of the foot accompanied with some black patches. So we'll just construct the rubrics. There is one which is intermittent ague, which is intermittent fever. That's a 19th century term and taken from the Kner's repertory of Herring's guiding symptoms. Then we take the second one, which is supporting a part ameliorates, the back in particular. The pain has been very graphically described as being a pain of as if the person has been beaten. So I have taken the rubric pain, blow as after. There is pain which is aggravated in the chest by breathing deeply. The pain is increased due to chill, and there is swelling on the dorsum of the foot. So I have taken this particular rubric of swelling edematous feet. So let us see how it shows up in the analysis. I have once again used the complete repertory, which is an integral part of HomeoQuest. And these are the results that we get. So there are 7 rubrics with eupatorium leading with 25 points and sharing that space with pulsatilla, followed by bryonia, lycopodium, and the rest of the remedies like CPR, sulfur, arsenicum. Now, if you see this particular chart, you will notice that This is what we can describe as a fairly flat repertorization, a flat analysis, because there are the first 10 remedies, all of them uh, cover all the 7 rubrics. So in other words, we have not been able to get anything very specific out of these rubrics, except for the fact that eupatorium is one of the leaders. But once again, as we know, the grades of the symptoms are not a very reliable guide to the choice of a remedy. It is not a mathematical entity, so please don't take it as an accounting tool. So eupatorium, although it appears at the head of the table with 25 points, it is number one because pulsatilla, which also has 25 points, is alphabetically coming after eupatorium. So we need to do something more, which means we need to study or analyze these remedies with the help of our materia medica. So let's take each one of them one by one. So let's take these. Eupatorium, I'm using Lupus guide red line symptoms book, which is a very useful reference. Very good keynote, and it is from the time of Bonninghausen, and he was a contemporary of Dr. Samuel Hahnemann himself, and in close correspondence with him. So it's a very reliable source, especially for the older remedies which were known during Hahnemann's time. So it says in capitals, aching pains as if in the bones. That's very important. It describes the sensation quite accurately. Bones, bone pains affecting the back, head, chest, and limbs. A bruised feeling as if broken. Intermittent feeling, a fever. The chill commences about 7 or 9 in the morning, and it's in the back all over the body. Now, you see, if the case had not been overwhelmed by the supposition that it has to be solved only by the sensation method, perhaps the person taking the case could have tried to get more in terms of time modalities, more in terms of physical modalities, which are seriously lacking in this particular case. And they would have helped us in constructing a rubric with that and pinpointing the remedy more accurately. Now, this is something very important, and please read it carefully. This is by Adolf Lippe. He says bryonia is the nearest analog, having free sweat but pains keep the patient quiet, while eupatorium perfoliatum has scanty sweat and pains make the patient restless. Once again, we do not have this information because the case taking missed these points. It's not that the practitioner should have this remedy in mind while asking the questions, but it should have been part of a more generalized case taking, which, as we saw, and I'm sorry to use the word, has been hijacked by the sensation approach. So the whole case has been woven around that, and therefore many important modalities and such features which could have helped us during the repertorial analysis have been missed. But even so, we haven't lost the battle. We have our materia medica and these beautiful references to help us make the correct choice. The next remedy to consider with the same score as eupatorium perfoliatum is pulsatilla, but as you'll see, pulsatilla has got changing and shifting symptoms which are not reported. All of us know the nature of pulsatilla symptoms. They rise to a certain pitch and then they suddenly cease, which is again not the case in this particular case. Also, they affect the mucous membrane. This particular patient and the pains described by the patient are more in the nature of the serous membrane and not the mucous membrane. You see, having pain in the ribs when you deep breathe is probably a better indication of an infection or some problem with the pleura in the lungs. The same thing applies to the pain in the other joints that have been mentioned. So better cold and fresh air, but this patient has reported chills. And the principal seat of action is the tongue, the stomach, bowels, and the female and genitourinary system organs. Now remember, this case relates to a female who is 40 years old. And if it were a male, obviously we would not have expected any female symptoms. But here they are very important and the patient has reported none. So pulsatilla on that score goes down in our hierarchy. Now let us look at bryonia, which has been described as the analog by LUP3. Here's a summary from different sources, principally Pathak, LUP3 and Borike. It says that bryonia is effective in rheumatic pains in the limbs with tension, aggravated by motion and contact. Well, pretty close. Bryonia develops a marked action on all serous membranes and the viscera that they contain. So continuing with that, we find that the person is worse motion, least motion in fact, raising up, stooping, coughing, exertion, and deep breathing. So that also comes quite close to our particular case. And bryonia also has photophobia. So although the patient is not reporting photophobia or a fear of light, but it is, the person is aggravated, the headaches are aggravated by light. So as you can see, this comes pretty close to our case. And let's take yet another remedy, lycopodium, which is figuring quite high in the score. Lycopodium, as all of us know, is a very big polycrest. However, even so, it has got a particular affinity for the digestive tract, for the portal system, for the throat, chest, brain and lungs, urinary organs, and the right side. So once again, this does not figure very high. It is worse warmth, whereas our patient is much better warmth. It's a very chilly patient. So now we can zero in on Eupatorium perfoliatum because as we saw, pulsatilla does not fit the overall picture, nor does lycopodium. And bryonia comes very close to that. And bryonia is a very close analog of Eupatorium perfoliatum. It would be a good choice on the basis of repertorization to give Eupatorium first and perhaps follow it up with a bryonia either to complete the cure or if it fails to act. Now the remedy chosen by Dr. Borkar after his first two attempts was indeed Eupatorium perfoliatum, and he followed this case up, and after 1 year there was no fever, there was no bone pain, the hair fall had stopped, which is not mentioned in the case. The hair started turning black from grey, again which was not one of the complaints that is mentioned. And also the ANA test was repeated after 1 year and that tested negative. So that was another very positive sign that in fact the cure was going in the right direction. So now let's summarize what we have covered in this particular video session. We saw that it is possible to analyze this case using rubrics. In fact, our analysis could have been more accurate if the case taking had taken into consideration some standard common modalities and concomitants to help us get closer to the remedy of our choice. We also did a differential analysis of remedies based on tissues, organs, affinities, as well as from keynotes presented by LUP3, Pathak, and Borkar. The advantage of this particular approach is that instead of restricting ourselves to a single remedy, which is forced out of the sensation method because of its approach on miasms and kingdoms and like, we have a second prescription ready with us, either to complete the cure or to be used in the event the first remedy does not work. In this particular case, it was bryonia. So we are in a much better position in managing our case than we would be without this. Also, we saw that this case turned out very well, even after using the sensation method, because Eupatorium perfoliatum addressed the specificity of seat, tissue, and organ in this particular case, which was missed with the first two prescription of asafoetida and Sambul. So I hope that has helped you to understand this case. Thank you very much for your attention, and bye bye. See you in a later case later. Bye bye.